Hey folks, welcome back. Now listen, this is not your typical dating guide. This isn't say this text or do this cute thing to get their attention. No, this is a video that was never meant to go public. Because what I'm about to share with you is something most people don't talk about. Not in books, not in therapy, not even in those secret dating groups online. Because it's not sweet, it's not polite, it's powerful, and when used right, it can change the way someone sees you forever. This is the band trick, the one that taps into something primal, something that messes with the mind in a way that keeps you on their mind long after you've gone quiet. But I have to say this now, you have to use it at your own risk, because once you activate this energy, there's no going back to being the one who chases. You become the one who haunts. Now, I know we've got 3 kinds of people here tonight, and I want to talk to each one of you directly. If you're in a relationship right now and it's on fire, congratulations. You've got chemistry, you've got passion, but deep down, even when things are going good, you want more. You want that addictive pull, where your partner doesn't just love you, they crave you. You want to stay one step ahead, always a little mysterious, always making their heart skip just a little harder. And that's where this trick is your secret weapon. But maybe your fire has started to fade. The texts feel colder. The calls are shorter. They don't touch you the same. And you're wondering, are they slipping away? You're not ready to give up. You know there's still something real there, but you also know that begging, explaining, over-communicating doesn't work. You need to flip the energy, make them feel your absence, make them remember what it felt like when you were fully in it, and make them desperate to get that back. You're in the perfect place, because this tool, this silence I'm about to give you, it can reignite fire without a single word. And then there are some of you who were betrayed, left, ghosted, rejected when all you gave was your best. And now you're stuck between wanting to move on and secretly wishing they'd feel every ounce of the pain they caused you. You don't want revenge. You want remembrance. You want to walk away so deeply, so silently, that they feel the void you left behind. And when they do, you want them to regret everything. Let me tell you this, that power, it's real, and I'm going to help you take it back. This isn't noise. This is silence that speaks louder than any confession. This is the mystery that makes hearts race. And this is your moment to take control of your story, without chasing, without pleading, without losing your dignity. So stay with me, because by the end of this video, you won't just understand the band trick. You'll become the person who doesn't need to speak to be felt. Now, if you're ready to take your power back, if you're ready to feel like you are the one who gets remembered, drop this in the comments right now. I choose silent power. Say it, claim it, write it below. And if you're feeling the energy already, hit the like button and subscribe, because we're just getting started. Number 1, why this is a weapon, and hey, not the one that harm. You know what's wild? When people feel like they're losing someone, they usually start talking more. They over-explain, they send paragraphs, they try to fix it. They overgive, over-text, over-show just how much they care, hoping the other person will finally see them. But here's the trap. The more you try to be understood, the less mysterious you become. And the human brain? It doesn't crave what's obvious. It craves what it can't figure out. We are hardwired to chase what slips through our fingers, not because we're broken, but because the unknown triggers something primal, a kind of obsession, the unanswered question, the blank space, the gap between what we felt and what we no longer have access to. And that, right there, is the birthplace of desire. That's why this trick, this silence I'm about to teach you, is more than just not talking. It's the kind of silence that echoes, the kind that makes them scroll through your messages, the kind that forces them to sit with their own feelings, without your soothing voice to calm them down. It's the kind of silence that turns into noise inside their head, and the louder that noise gets, the more they start reaching back for you. Now, stay with me, because I'm about to break this down for exactly where you are right now. If you're in a relationship that's still on fire, good. I know you probably feel seen, adored, maybe even spoiled. But let me tell you something most people won't say out loud. When things are going well, that's actually the most dangerous time to get too comfortable, because desire doesn't just live in closeness, it lives in space. It lives in a little bit of unpredictability. You want to keep them hooked. Don't always be available. You don't have to be cold, but be unreachable sometimes. Pull back right after a beautiful moment. Let them feel that little gap, like the final scene of a movie where the music fades and the screen goes black, but you're still sitting there, stunned, craving more. That's what creates emotional addiction. That's how you stay unforgettable, even in love that's already blooming. But maybe your story's different. Maybe your fire is flickering. You feel it. They're not texting like they used to. They used to call you just to hear your voice, and now it's you doing all the work. You're not crazy. You're feeling the shift. And I know it's tempting to try harder, to send that one last heartfelt message, to fix it, to pull them back in. But listen to me. When someone starts drifting, chasing them doesn't pull them closer. It actually pushes them further away. Because energetically, your fear feels like pressure, like emotional weight, and people resist what feels heavy. Instead, go silent, not out of anger, but out of self-respect. Let them feel what life is like when your energy isn't chasing them. Let them miss your laugh, your warmth, your presence. Let them wonder, wait, where did she go? That's emotional contrast, and that's when they start realizing what they lost, because now it's no longer in front of them, giving, proving, waiting. Now, to my third audience, the ones who were ghosted, the ones who were lied to, betrayed, discarded like they didn't matter. You're the ones with the deepest fire, not because you want revenge, but because you still remember what it felt like when you gave someone everything, and they dropped it, walked away like it was nothing. And I know part of you wants to scream, see me, look what you lost, regret it. But let me tell you, silence is louder than screaming. When you stop responding, when you stop explaining, when you stop trying to show them your worth, you become a mirror, a mystery. An empty space they can't stop looking at because suddenly it's not filled with your energy anymore, and now they have to feel the emptiness they created. This isn't silence to disappear, it's silence to transform. You stop being the person who needed closure, who needed answers, and you become the person who needs nothing. Because now they're the ones with questions. Questions like, why did she stop caring? Did I mess up? Is she over me? And that's when the spiral begins. You see, silence isn't passive, not the kind I'm about to show you. It's active invisibility. It's a move that flips the script. Because when you stop giving energy, the power doesn't disappear. It returns to you. You're not abandoning them. You're withdrawing your power. You're stepping back so they can feel the difference between your presence and your absence. And when you do this right, when it's intentional, calm, clean, they don't just miss you. They feel the ache of losing something they didn't value until it was gone. But I'm not done yet, because in a moment I'm going to give you the exact recipe. The silence trick, the one that's so dark, so emotionally precise, it should come with a warning label. The one that doesn't just make them miss you. It makes them addicted to wondering what you're thinking, where you went, and how to get you back. So stay with me. Because this isn't about playing games. It's about awakening a side of you that doesn't need to fight for attention, because your absence alone becomes unforgettable. They don't know it yet, but they're about to feel the full weight of losing someone they never thought could walk away without a sound. And you're about to become silently unforgettable. Keep watching. The recipe's coming next. And when you use it, they'll never look at silence the same way again. Number 2, the band trick, controlled silence. All right, you've waited long enough. This is it. The part I almost didn't share, the part that's had people saying, this shouldn't be public. Because what I'm about to tell you isn't surface-level advice. It's not cute. It's not soft, and it's definitely not safe for anyone who's not ready to take their power back completely. This is the banned trick, and it's banned for a reason, because it always works, because it bypasses logic, because it speaks directly to the subconscious, where attraction, obsession, and regret live. This is not just about being silent. Anyone can go quiet. Anyone can give the cold shoulder for a few hours, post a quote on Instagram, turn their read receipts on, and hope someone gets the hint. That's not what this is. This is controlled silence, and controlled silence is something very few people have the courage or clarity to use, because it requires emotional discipline. It requires you to sit in your power even when your ego is screaming. Text them. Fix it. Let them know how you feel. But when you use this kind of silence, you don't chase, you don't explain, you don't react, you withdraw, quietly, powerfully, without guilt, and without warning. This is what makes it different, because normal silence just creates space, but controlled silence, it creates tension. It creates the kind of emptiness they feel in their chest. It's the absence that echoes louder than presence ever could. Let me show you how this works. You stop reaching out, not because you're angry, but because you're done giving without being matched. You stop liking their posts. You stop checking who watched your stories. You stop showing up with that "I'm still here if you need me" energy. You don't post cryptic things hoping they'll notice. You don't accidentally run into them. You disappear completely, but you do it with calm, not chaos. With presence, not panic, and that's what makes it so unnerving. Because they expect noise, they expect a reaction, they expect you to spiral, to chase, to fall apart. But when you give them silence with confidence, that's when they lose it. Let's break it down for exactly where you are right now. If you're in a relationship that's hot and passionate, this trick amplifies desire, because your partner is used to having access to you, your energy, your smile, your affection. But what happens when you subtly pull back for a little while, when you don't answer the text right away, when you let a night pass without being the first one to say goodnight? Not in a cold way, but in a powerful way. It creates emotional contrast. It makes them wonder, what's on her mind? Is she pulling away? And that wondering, that mystery, that slight unavailability, it makes you 10 times more desirable, because the brain becomes obsessed with inconsistency. That's the same reason people get hooked on slot machines. It's not the constant wins, it's the intermittent rewards, and that's what this trick becomes. You are the reward, but now your attention is earned, not assumed. Now, if you're in that uncertain stage where things are cooling off, the passion is slipping, and you're not sure where you stand, this is where controlled silence is not just powerful, it's crucial. Because when someone pulls away and you chase them, you reinforce their distance. You tell them they can give you less and still get your everything. But when you go silent, truly silent, they start to feel the gap. They start asking questions. Did I go too far? Is she done? Why does this feel so empty now? And that's the moment the emotional dynamic shifts. Because now they're the one unsure, they're the one looking for signs, and you are no longer available for breadcrumbs. And to those of you who were hurt, ghosted, betrayed, left wondering if you were ever enough, this is your superpower, because you have nothing left to prove. And when you finally go silent, not out of bitterness, but out of elevation, it hits different. They expected drama. They expected tears, blame, chaos, but you gave them a storm in silence, a deafening nothing. And that haunts people more than anything else, because deep down, everyone wants to know they still matter. Everyone wants to believe they'll be missed. But when you're just gone, without explanation, without reaction, without energy, it forces them to sit with themselves. And most people can't handle that kind of mirror. Controlled silence is banned not because it's cruel, but because it's too effective. It messes with the mind in a way that leaves a lasting mark. It breaks patterns, it shifts power, and it changes the entire emotional equation. It works whether you're in love, confused, or heartbroken. Because in every stage of a relationship, there is one truth. We crave what we feel slipping away. And when you stop speaking, when you stop reaching, when your warmth goes cold without a word, they start to feel something they didn't expect. Loss, real, visceral, terrifying loss. And you didn't have to scream. You didn't have to chase. You just had to stop showing up where you were being taken for granted. So don't mistake this for ghosting. This isn't a game. This is energetic authority. This is choosing to be silent because your energy is sacred. And if they want access to you again, they're going to have to earn it. They'll wonder where you went. They'll keep checking for signs. They'll feel your absence in places they didn't even know your presence had touched. And when that moment comes, when they finally reach out again, wondering what happened, you'll know it worked, because silence without fear is not weakness. It's seduction. It's mystery. It's control. And it's banned because once you master it, you'll never need to raise your voice to be heard again. Now stay with me, because in the next section, I'll show you exactly why it works so well. We're not done yet. The power is only just beginning. Number 3, why it always works. Now let's talk about why this silence works. Why it drives them wild. Why it flips the dynamic, no matter how hot, cold, or shattered the relationship has become. And why, once you use it, they start spiraling in ways you'll never see, but they'll never recover from. It all comes down to one truth. Humans crave closure, not because we're weak, but because the brain desperately wants to complete emotional stories. And when a story suddenly ends without warning, with no explanation, no reaction, no hint of what comes next, the mind goes into overdrive. It starts searching, replaying old conversations, wondering, what did I miss? Was that the last time I'll ever hear from them? Are they gone? For real? And that search becomes a loop they can't escape. Because you aren't feeding it anymore. You're not texting. You're not posting for them to decode. You're not giving them any clues. And when you go that silent, you hijack their attention. Let me explain. When someone has emotional control over you, they can predict you. They know you'll call back. They know you'll check in eventually. Even if you get upset, they assume they'll hear from you again, because you always have. But when you break that pattern, when you go from warm to ice cold, from vulnerable to completely unavailable, you short-circuit their expectations. You become unpredictable, and that, psychologically, is what creates obsession. It's the uncertainty that drives people mad. Not knowing where they stand, not knowing what you're thinking, not knowing if they've been forgotten, or if they've just become forgettable. And that question alone, do I even matter to them anymore, is enough to keep someone awake at night. Let's break this down by where you are right now. If your relationship is strong and steady, they adore you, they feel safe. That's beautiful. But even safety can become complacency. Even love can become routine. And when something becomes predictable, it stops being urgent. So what happens when, out of nowhere, you change the pattern? You stop texting first. You pull back your energy. You don't give them the usual affection on cue. It creates a mini emotional crisis in their mind. Not because you're being cruel, but because they're suddenly aware of how deeply they care. Because the thing they took for granted is now missing. You didn't break the connection. You just made them feel it. Now, if your relationship is fading, if their attention has drifted, their presence gone cold, this is where the silence becomes lethal, because when they think they're in control, that you'll still be there waiting, hoping, giving them one more chance, and then you're just gone. That's the shock they didn't see coming, and the mind always remembers the shock, not the argument, not the goodbye, but the moment someone went completely quiet. With no fight, no drama, just stillness. It gets into their body like a ghost they can't shake. They'll check your stories. They'll stalk your feed. They'll reread that last message over and over, trying to analyze your tone, trying to find some crack, some clue. Because in the absence of clarity, they invent their own meanings, and those meanings always come back to them. Did I do something wrong? Are they seeing someone else? Why aren't they hurting like I am? And to the ones who were hurt, the ones who gave everything and got betrayed or ghosted in return, your silence is not just powerful, it's surgical, because they didn't expect it from you. They thought you'd fall apart. They thought you'd keep reaching out, trying to understand, trying to fix what they shattered. But when you go quiet, completely, unapologetically quiet, it forces them into an identity crisis. Because now they don't just miss you, they miss the version of themselves that you reflected back to them, the one that felt wanted, admired, loved. And without your validation, they crumble, because silence does something noise never can. It makes someone sit with their own guilt, and guilt, when it echoes with no reply, becomes obsession. So if you're wondering, but will this really work? Will they even notice? Yes, they will. Because this silence isn't passive. It's not just you disappearing and hoping they care. It's intentional emotional withdrawal. It's you flipping the dynamic without saying a word. It's you becoming the question mark in their story, the unfinished sentence, the what if that lingers longer than any closure ever could. This is why it works. Because humans don't fall in love with certainty, they fall in love with possibility, with tension, with mystery, and when you become that mystery, that beautiful, confusing, unreachable version of yourself, you become unforgettable. And you didn't need to beg, you didn't need to explain, you just needed to stop showing up where your presence was being taken for granted. They thought they'd have time to circle back to you, they thought you'd still be there when they were ready, but now you're gone. And that silence, that's the sound of their panic beginning, and your power returning. Stay with me. Because next, I'm going to show you how to weaponize emotional contrast and use unpredictability to make them crave you like never before. Number 4. How to use emotional contrast. If you thought the trick was just controlled silence, oh my friend, you're only holding half the blade. Because the real weapon, the one that digs under their skin and stays there, is emotional contrast. Let me explain something very few people ever understand. The brain doesn't get addicted to calm. It doesn't become obsessed with consistency. It becomes obsessed with tension. Emotional unpredictability, the highs and lows that send shockwaves through the nervous system. That's why emotional contrast is so powerful, because when you shift the vibe suddenly, without warning, you create a kind of psychological whiplash. One moment they're basking in your warmth, your softness, your presence, your affection, and then silence, withdrawn, gone. It doesn't feel like punishment, it feels like confusion. And confusion leads to obsession, because now they have to solve you. They'll try to decode your silence like a puzzle, replay your tone, read back into your messages, check if you're active online, check your stories, ask themselves, did I say something wrong? Is she mad? Has she moved on? The mind spirals because contrast triggers the panic center of the brain, and panic creates craving. Let's bring this home for each of you. If you're in a relationship that's still warm, still passionate, listen closely. You don't want to create distance out of bitterness. This is not about punishing your partner. It's about pulling them closer by stepping away at the perfect moment, right after a beautiful date. Right after a soft moment, right after he opens up or says something vulnerable, that's when you pull back just a little. You don't ghost. You don't disappear for days, but you create emotional space. You become just a little harder to reach. You let the last moment sit in silence. Why? Because that's when the contrast hits. That's when his body starts missing you, not because you're gone forever, but because the energy changed so suddenly it woke him up. You go from sweetness to stillness, and that stillness becomes the tension that keeps him chasing. Now, if your relationship is slipping, if they've stopped trying, stopped caring, gone cold, this is your leverage. You've probably tried being more open, more loving, more giving, but none of it worked. Because when someone feels like they have you no matter what, they stop valuing your presence. So the next time they ignore your message, don't double text, don't follow up, don't just check in. Go silent completely. Let the emotional contrast speak louder than words ever could. Because when someone expects a reaction and gets nothing, it shakes them. And suddenly, the same person who thought they could coast through your love starts wondering, wait, are they slipping away? Did I lose her? And that fear, that's what re-engages their heart, not your affection, but your absence. And to the ones who were betrayed, the ones who were replaced, forgotten, lied to, here's where this becomes absolutely brutal. And I mean that in the most beautiful way. Because the person who hurt you thought they understood you. They thought they knew exactly how you'd respond. They expected heartbreak, a meltdown, endless texts trying to get clarity. They never expected nothing, no closure, no goodbye, no fight, just silence. But not just any silence. Silence that follows sweetness. Silence that shows up right after you smiled through the pain and let them think you were okay. Right after they thought, she'll never leave. Right after they assumed they had you on the hook forever. And then you vanish. No warning, no clues, no explanation. That's emotional contrast on a soul level. It burns. Because it forces them to face the one thing they thought they'd never feel again, your absence. Not a dramatic exit, but a ghostly silence that feels permanent. And when people feel permanent loss, that's when the regret starts. Not right away, not when you first go quiet, but when days pass and you don't return. When they realize you weren't playing a game, you were closing a door, silently. That's what makes emotional contrast addictive. It's not the silence alone, it's the shift between who you were and who you are now. And you don't have to explain that shift. You don't have to justify your pullback. Your silence is the explanation. Your absence is the message. The contrast is what lingers. The tension is what makes them spiral, and that spiral is what keeps you on their mind long after the last word was said. Now, stay with me. Because what happens after the contrast hits, that's when they start breaking. That's when the text shows up. That's when they reach back, confused, curious, craving. And when they do, you're not chasing. You're choosing, because now the power is fully in your hands. Number 5, the mirror void effect. Now, you've heard about silence. You've felt the weight of contrast. But if you want to really make someone miss you, not just wonder where you went, but feel haunted by your absence, then it's time to add the third ingredient to our banned recipe. It's called the mirror void effect, and it's more than a trick. It's a psychological reversal, a method so subtle, so unnerving. It makes people feel the very way they made you feel, but without drama, without begging, without revenge. Just reflection. You see, when people pull away from you, when they get cold, distracted, careless, they don't actually expect you to mirror their distance. They expect you to chase it, to fill the space, to try harder. Because that's what you've always done. You've always been the one who closed the gap. But with this, you don't just pull back, you pull deeper. Not with anger, not with bitterness, but with silence that stings in a way their ego can't explain. This is the void. It's the quiet space where your warmth used to live. It's the space they thought they could take for granted, and now it reflects back to them, everything they've been doing to you. If they ignore your text, you ignore their energy. If they stop calling, you stop hoping. If they breadcrumb you, you disappear entirely, not to hurt them, but to mirror the coldness they thought you wouldn't notice. You become the mirror, but not just any mirror. You become the void, the version of you that no longer explains, no longer reacts, no longer asks, "What did I do wrong?" Because now they're asking themselves that same question, over and over and over again. Let me tell you what happens when you master this. Their mind turns against them. They'll start wondering if you ever cared. They'll start fearing that maybe you did, and they ruined it. They'll try to remember how you sounded when you laughed, how it felt when you cared, when you showed up, when you made things feel effortless. And now that energy, gone, with no closure, no scene, no fight to hold on to. Just the mirror. You gave them what they gave you, but with poise, with grace, with silence. And that's what makes it so devastating. Because it doesn't look like revenge, it looks like growth, and that's what makes it impossible to argue with. Let's talk about how this lands for you, depending on where you are. If you're in a relationship that still feels alive, this is your leverage to maintain polarity. You don't do it with hostility, you do it with elegance. He pulls back. You don't panic. You reflect. You match the energy with a light, almost effortless kind of detachment. It's playful, like saying, "Oh, you're quiet today, so am I." You're not angry, but you're no longer the emotional overfunctioner. You're not filling in the blanks, and that tiny shift, it unsettles him in the best way. If you're watching your relationship dim, if your partner is slipping away, distracted, numb, this is your reset button, because if you keep pouring, they keep taking. But when you stop, when you simply mirror the silence they gave you, it forces them to finally hear the silence for themselves. Now they're not ignoring your text. They're sitting in a quiet room, wondering why you haven't texted at all. Now they're not scrolling past your story. They're wondering why you haven't posted in 3 days. You became the silence they used to inflict on you, but this time it's deliberate. And if you've been hurt, if they walked away like you were disposable. This right here. This is divine emotional justice, because they expected you to collapse. They thought you'd break in front of them, but instead, you mirrored the abandonment. And then you disappeared into grace. They won't say it out loud, but that's the moment they knew they lost you. Not when they lied, not when they ghosted, not even when they betrayed you. It was the moment you didn't flinch, didn't cry, didn't chase. You simply became their reflection, and suddenly they couldn't stand the view. This is why it works. Because people don't change when you beg. They change when they're confronted with themselves, and your silence, your mirror, is the only thing strong enough to show them the truth. So remember this. When you mirror their energy, not with fire, but with void, you force them into the exact discomfort they put you through, and nothing, I mean nothing, makes a person spiral faster than seeing their own emotional neglect mirrored back at them, without a single word. Now stay close, because in the next section, I'm going to show you how to master subtle shifts in energy, without going fully silent, and still drive them absolutely wild with curiosity. Number 6. Subtle shifts in energy without saying a word. If you thought silence was the only power in this banned recipe, let me show you something even sharper, something softer, slower, and yet somehow more lethal, because sometimes it's not even about going fully silent. It's not about blocking them, or disappearing, or vanishing like a ghost in the night. Sometimes it's the tiny shifts in energy, the ones you don't announce, the ones you don't post about, the ones they feel, but can't quite explain. That's where the magic is. That's where the obsession starts, because the brain is wired to notice subtle changes, and when the vibe changes, even by a degree, it causes emotional disturbance. It triggers that inner voice that says, wait, something's different, something's wrong, and suddenly they're not comfortable anymore. They're not coasting anymore. They're scanning every detail of your behavior, trying to figure out what they did or what they missed. Let me show you how this looks in real life. You don't stop replying. You just stop replying first. You don't stop smiling. But your smile fades faster. You still talk to them, but your eyes don't light up the same. You're still sweet, but now your energy is cooler, not cold, just removed, measured, like you know something they don't, and trust me, they will feel it. They won't say it out loud, not at first. They'll just pause longer before texting. They'll reread your last message, trying to decode your tone. They'll notice the way you laughed less at that joke, the way your voice didn't soften like it used to, the way you used to ask about their day, and now you don't. And that shift, it haunts people. Because now they're no longer focused on what you're saying. They're fixated on what you're not saying, what you're not giving, what used to flow effortlessly from you, but now feels like a mystery. Let's zoom into each of you so you know exactly how to use this. If you're in a hot, passionate relationship, this is how you reignite obsession. You don't have to play games. You don't have to disappear. You just pull your energy back 1 inch. That's it. You don't text him like you used to. You don't fill in silences. You don't explain your moods. You let him chase the shift. And when he asks, is something wrong? You smile and say, no, I'm good. And that unknown, that little flicker of distance, drives him crazy. Because now he's working to earn back the softness that he once took for granted. And that's attraction reignited. Now, if your relationship is fading, this is where subtle shift becomes your most elegant power play. Because when someone starts pulling back, most people panic. They ask, are we okay? Did I do something wrong? they overcompensate. But you do the opposite. You act like you know something they don't. You match their coldness, but with grace. You stop overgiving. You stop trying to make it feel like it did before. And when they finally notice the silence in your smile, the distance in your touch, the delay in your texts, they start feeling the consequences of their neglect. And it's not because you made a scene, it's because you let the energy speak for itself. No closure, no drama, just shifts that they can't ignore. And if your heart was broken, if they betrayed you, replaced you, or disappeared without a second thought, this is where your power becomes art. Because you don't need revenge. You don't need a grand exit. You just need to detach, quietly, emotionally, cleanly. You can still be polite. You can still look beautiful, smile, say hi, even reply to a message. But your spirit is no longer invested, and they will feel it because they're used to feeling you there. Your presence, your care, your emotional warmth. And now, it's like standing next to someone who once adored them, but no longer sees them the same. And that difference hits harder than any revenge ever could, because they don't know how to fix it. They don't even know exactly what's wrong. All they know is the light in your eyes. It's not for them anymore. So whether you're still in love, losing someone slowly, or healing from heartbreak, these subtle shifts are your power. They don't require words. They don't require blocking, disappearing, or creating a scene. Just a quiet, internal decision. To no longer give freely what is no longer cherished. To no longer glow for someone who only noticed you when you dimmed. To become unreachable. Not physically, energetically. And that kind of shift, that's the one they feel in their bones. Now, stay with me, because next, I'm going to show you what happens when they finally break. When the silence, the contrast, the mirror, the subtle shifts, finally crack through their ego, and they come crawling back. Number 7, when they break the silence first, and they will. And now, we arrive at the moment you've been quietly waiting for. The moment that proves this entire banned recipe works. The silence, the contrast, the mirror, the subtle shift, all of it leads here. Because eventually they break. They always do. At first, they'll pretend it doesn't affect them. They'll look busy. They'll post stories. They'll laugh a little louder than usual, flirt with people you know are meant to get your attention. They'll act like they've moved on, like you never left a mark. But that's all it is, an act. Because even the best actors forget their lines when the silence becomes too loud. And silence is louder than pride. So you'll notice the shift. It starts small. They watch your stories a little too quickly. They like something from your feed that you didn't expect. They post something vague, just vague enough that you know it's for you. But then it happens. The message. Hey, just thinking about you. Hope you're doing okay. Sorry for the silence. Life's just been a lot lately. Or maybe it's even more casual. Did you see that thing we talked about? Just remembered that song you showed me. LOL, remember when we... And suddenly, you're back in their mind, not as a memory, but as an ache. Let me be clear, this isn't an accident. They didn't just remember you. They've been remembering you non-stop. They've been trying to convince themselves they're fine, until the stillness became unbearable, because the version of you that once poured love into them is now completely inaccessible. And when they break the silence, that's when the dynamic flips. That's when the chase begins. But this time, you're not chasing. And here's where most people mess it up. They rush in. They reply too quickly. They melt the mystery. They drop everything just to be seen again. But not you. Not now. Because now you know better. You don't punish them. You don't ignore them forever. You simply pause. You breathe. You let them feel the weight of what they did, not through cruelty, but through the quiet space between their outreach and your response. Let them wonder. Let them check their phone a few too many times. Let them feel what it's like to wait on your energy, because they need to earn your warmth now. Not demand it, not expect it. Earn it, and you'll know when they're serious, because their tone changes. They get more vulnerable, less prideful. They stop pretending. They feel the shift, the new version of you. Stronger, calmer, colder, but somehow more magnetic than ever. They'll try to trigger the old you, the one who replied in seconds, the one who couldn't handle space, the one who needed closure more than they needed respect. But you're not her anymore. You are the version of yourself that people regret losing, and that energy, it cannot be faked. So when they break the silence, and trust me, they will, don't rush to validate them. Don't spill your heart to prove you still care, because now it's their turn to prove something, to prove they're worth your softness again, to prove they see your value, not just feel your absence. And the longer you hold your power, the more they feel it, because what hurts them isn't your silence. It's the realization that you were always the one holding the emotional weight. And now that it's gone, they feel it in every part of their body. This is how the dynamic reverses. This is how the chaser becomes the chased. And this is how you stop begging for love and start being remembered as the one they never truly got over. So don't just react when they come back. Respond from your power, from your healed, high-standard energy, from the version of you that knows silence was never weakness. It was the message they couldn't unhear. And now that they're listening, make them work for every single drop of your warmth, not out of spite, but out of self-worth. Because when they finally break the silence, you've already won. You just need to decide, do they deserve another chance with your energy, or was your silence their final lesson? And if this hit you deep, if you felt every word like it was written for you, then you already know what to do. Hit that like button, subscribe for more, and let me know in the comments, are you ready to be the one they never get over? I'll see you in the next video.